Timeline and process management represents the critical framework that transforms the overwhelming complexity of Aliyah from a chaotic collection of requirements into a manageable, sequential process. Successful Aliyah requires coordinating multiple parallel workstreams across different timescales, each with dependencies, critical paths, and potential bottlenecks that can affect the entire immigration timeline. Effective process management becomes the difference between smooth transition and prolonged delays that can affect everything from employment opportunities to children's school enrollment. The 18-month master timeline framework. The optimal Aliyah timeline begins 18 months before intended departure, providing adequate time for document gathering, application processing, financial preparation, and the numerous administrative tasks that cannot be rushed or compressed without risking delays or complications. This extended timeline accounts for the reality that government processes, professional licensing, and international bureaucracies operate on schedules that rarely accommodate urgent requests or compressed timelines. The initial 6-month period focuses primarily on research, preliminary decision-making, and beginning the most time-sensitive processes. This phase involves researching target locations in Israel, understanding professional licensing requirements, beginning Hebrew language study, and initiating contact with relevant organizations like the Jewish Agency, Nefesh B'Nefesh, or other immigration assistance organizations. Early research investment prevents later discoveries that could require significant plan modifications or timeline adjustments. Month 18 through month 13 represents the documentation gathering and initial application phase, when the focus shifts from research to active preparation. This period requires obtaining apostille documents, collecting medical records, researching and choosing health funds and insurance options, and beginning the formal application process with immigration authorities. Document gathering often takes longer than anticipated due to processing delays at various institutions, making early initiation crucial for maintaining overall timeline integrity. Document collection and processing timeline. Document gathering requires careful sequencing due to validity periods, processing times, and interdependencies between different requirements. Birth certificates, marriage certificates, and other civil documents require apostille certification, which can take several weeks in the UK depending on current processing backlogs. Criminal background checks have specific validity periods, typically 6 months, requiring timing coordination to ensure documents remain valid throughout the application review process. Medical records collection should begin early since comprehensive medical histories from multiple providers can require extensive time for compilation and organization. Some medical records may need translation, while others require specific formatting or certification that adds additional processing time. Vaccination records often require archaeological excavation through multiple healthcare providers and educational institutions, particularly for older family members whose childhood immunization records predate modern digital record-keeping systems. Professional qualification documentation involves obtaining certified copies of degrees, transcripts, and professional certifications, followed by assessment for Israeli equivalency when required. Some professional fields require additional certification or examination processes that cannot begin until basic qualifications are verified, creating sequential dependencies that extend timeline requirements well beyond simple document collection. Application submission and review coordination. The formal application submission phase typically occurs 12 to 15 months before intended departure, allowing adequate time for review, potential additional documentation requests, and interview scheduling. Jewish agency application processes involve multiple review stages, each potentially requiring additional documentation or clarification that can extend processing timelines beyond initial estimates. Interview scheduling represents a critical milestone that affects subsequent planning since preliminary approval is typically required before making final arrangements for employment, housing, or school enrollment. Interview timing often depends on local Jewish agency scheduling availability, which varies by location and season, requiring flexibility in overall timeline planning. Application review periods can vary significantly based on individual circumstances, documentation completeness, and current processing volumes at review institutions. Complex cases involving professional licensing, business ownership, or unique family circumstances often require extended review periods that should be anticipated in timeline planning rather than treated as unexpected delays. Financial preparation and currency management timeline. Financial preparation requires coordination across multiple timescales, from immediate currency exchange decisions to long-term investment and pension planning strategies. Banking relationship establishment in Israel typically requires physical presence, making it impossible to complete before arrival, but research and preliminary preparation can streamline the process significantly. Currency exchange timing involves balancing immediate needs for Israeli funds against exchange rate fluctuations that can significantly affect overall financial outcomes. Large transfers for property purchases or major expenses require strategic timing that considers both exchange rates and Israeli banking procedures for handling substantial international transfers. Property purchase decisions require coordination with overall immigration timelines, since mortgage applications, legal procedures, and settlement processes in Israel operate according to different time frames than UK property transactions. Property purchase timing affects everything from temporary accommodation needs to shipping address coordination for household goods. Professional and career transition management. Professional preparation timelines vary dramatically by field, but generally require beginning 12 to 15 months before departure to allow adequate time for licensing, certification, or examination processes required for professional practice in Israel. Some professions require substantial additional education or certification that cannot be completed while maintaining full-time UK employment, requiring careful coordination of career transition timing. Job search activities in Israel often require Hebrew language proficiency and understanding of local professional networks that take months to develop effectively. Building professional networks through online platforms, professional associations, and industry contacts requires sustained effort over extended periods rather than intensive short-term activities immediately before departure. Career transition planning must coordinate UK employment departure timing with Israeli employment prospects, considering potential gaps in income that affect financial planning and lifestyle maintenance during transition periods. Professional networking and job search activities often accelerate during the final 6 months before departure, when immigration approval provides concrete departure dates. Health and medical transition scheduling. Medical preparation requires coordination with treatment schedules, prescription refill timing, and healthcare provider availability that cannot always accommodate immigration timelines. Comprehensive medical examinations and record collection should occur early enough to allow for addressing any identified health issues before departure, but recent enough to provide current health status information to Israeli healthcare providers. Medication management involves timing prescription refills to provide adequate supplies during transition periods while avoiding excessive quantities that might raise customs concerns. Some medications require special import permissions or documentation that involves processing time requirements that must be coordinated with overall departure scheduling. Dental and optical care should be scheduled to complete necessary treatments before departure while providing current examination results and prescriptions for Israeli healthcare provider reference. Some treatments may require multiple appointments over extended periods, requiring coordination with departure timing to ensure completion without unnecessary treatment interruption. Housing and logistics coordination. Housing decisions in Israel often depend on employment opportunities, school districts, and community preferences that cannot be finalized until after arrival and initial orientation. However, research and preliminary arrangements can be made to expedite permanent housing searches once specific location decisions are confirmed. Temporary accommodation arrangements require balancing cost considerations against flexibility needs, since initial settlement periods often involve unexpected delays or location changes based on employment opportunities or community integration experiences. Booking temporary accommodation too far in advance risks cancellation complications, while waiting too long risks limited availability during peak immigration seasons. International moving coordination requires precise timing alignment between UK departure, shipping schedules, customs clearance procedures, and Israeli delivery addresses. Container shipping timelines include ocean transit time, port handling procedures, and customs inspection processes that can extend delivery schedules beyond initial estimates, requiring coordination with temporary accommodation and essential item packing strategies. Children and family transition management. School enrollment timing in Israel follows academic calendar schedules that may not align perfectly with individual immigration timelines, requiring families to balance optimal immigration timing against educational continuity considerations. Israeli schools typically begin academic years in September, making summer immigration timing preferable for minimizing educational disruption, but this timing often coincides with peak immigration periods that can affect housing availability and temporary accommodation costs. Children's preparation activities including Hebrew language study, cultural orientation, and emotional preparation for major life changes require sustained effort over months rather than intensive short-term preparation immediately before departure. Age-appropriate involvement in immigration planning helps children process anticipated changes while maintaining reasonable expectations about adjustment timelines and integration challenges. Family coordination becomes particularly complex for extended families making Aliyah together or in sequence, requiring coordination of multiple application timelines, housing arrangements, and support systems during transition periods. Grandparents, adult children, or other family members may have different preparation timelines based on employment situations, health considerations, or housing arrangements that affect overall family immigration coordination. Final phase coordination and departure management. The final 3-month period before departure involves coordinating multiple simultaneous activities, including final document submissions, travel arrangements, UK administrative closure, shipping coordination, and farewell activities. This period typically involves accelerated pace of activities that can become overwhelming without careful coordination and priority management. Travel booking requires balancing cost considerations against flexibility needs, since immigration timelines may require last-minute adjustments based on application approval timing or unexpected delays in preparation activities. Flight arrangements should accommodate luggage allowances sufficient for essential items needed during initial settlement periods before shipped belongings arrive. UK administrative closure involves coordinating multiple government departments, financial institutions, and service providers, each operating according to different timelines and notification requirements. Some closure activities require specific timing relative to departure dates, while others should be completed well in advance to avoid complications during final departure preparations. Post-arrival process management. The first month after arrival involves intensive administrative activities, including government registration, banking establishment, healthcare enrollment, and basic service connections that form the foundation for longer-term integration activities. This period typically involves daily administrative tasks that require sustained energy and attention during what is often an emotionally and physically exhausting adjustment period. Essential registrations with Israeli government departments often require sequential completion, since some services depend on others being established first. Identity card issuance enables other registrations, while banking relationships facilitate various payment and documentation requirements needed for additional services and registrations. Employment and housing searches during initial settlement periods require balancing immediate needs against longer-term integration goals, often requiring flexible decision-making based on opportunities and circumstances that cannot be fully anticipated during pre-arrival planning phases. Contingency planning and risk management. Effective timeline management requires identifying potential delay points and developing contingency plans that minimize impact on overall immigration schedules. Document processing delays, application review extensions, or unexpected additional requirements can affect multiple downstream activities, requiring flexible scheduling and backup planning for critical path activities. Financial contingency planning addresses potential cost overruns, extended timeline expenses, or unexpected financial requirements that can strain budgets during transition periods. Emergency fund management should account for potential timeline extensions that increase temporary accommodation costs, duplicate living expenses, or unexpected fees for expedited processing services. Communication contingency planning addresses potential delays in information sharing between different organizations involved in the immigration process, requiring proactive follow-up and status monitoring to identify potential problems before they affect critical timeline milestones. Successful timeline and process management transforms the complexity of international immigration from overwhelming chaos into manageable sequential activities with clear priorities, realistic schedules, and adequate contingency planning. This systematic approach reduces stress, minimizes delays, and provides the organizational framework necessary for successful navigation of one of life's most complex administrative and personal challenges.